So, Confucius once said something really startling. He said, if they spit at you behind your back, it means that you're ahead of them.
It's a great quote.
Right. And I mean, on the surface, you are probably thinking, why on earth would anyone celebrate being spat upon? But today, our mission on this deep dive is to figure out what you should actually do when you find yourself in that exact position. Like when you suddenly realize, oh, wait, I actually have an advantage here.
What's fascinating here is that Confucius isn't actually celebrating hostility. And he certainly isn't, throwing a pity party for the person being targeted.
Yeah.
He's simply reorienting the geometry of the encounter. If the hostility is aimed at your back, well, that is a confession of their position relative to yours.
Yeah.
You are ahead. The spitting is just data.
It's purely locational, like they are quite literally behind you.
Exactly.
And that immediately sets up the central tension we're going to explore today. Once you realize you have this advantage, whether that's, in your career, your personal development, or just your understanding of the world, what do you actually do with it?
Right. Do you exploit the machinery of human nature to widen the gap and keep everyone else behind you? Or do you use that position to build a legacy?
And mapping the tension between those two paths is the core goal of our exploration today. Because the difference between exploiting an advantage and building a legacy, it dictates entirely how you will experience your life and, frankly, how others will experience you.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to truly understand how advantages are typically exploited by those who get ahead, we first have to look at, the dark arts of leverage.
We do.
Robert Greene points out a concept that operates with just unsettling precision. He talks about something called the Machiavellian gift.
Yeah, it's a brilliant, if highly cynical observation. The idea is that an act of generosity can actually be one of the most powerful mechanisms of control available to a person.
Wow.
It works directly on our emotional architecture. Green notes that when someone gives something to us, especially something entirely unexpected, we essentially revert to being children.
It's like a psychological Trojan horse. That is exactly what it is.
You see a gift, and your defenses just drop.
Yeah.
Because you aren't expecting an attack, you're expecting kindness. So it completely bypasses all those intellectual walls you've built up.
Right, the logic shuts down.
And suddenly, those complicated, deeply ingrained feelings we all had as kids about seeking parental approval and affection, they just come rushing right back to the surface. Our will gets loosened, we let them in.
Which is why the ancient Chinese actually had a phrase for this specific strategy. They called it giving before you take.
Oh, that's dark.
The absolute genius of that formulation is its blatant acknowledgement that the taking is the entire point. I mean, the giving is just the delivery vehicle.
The Trojan horse.
Right. Green warns that when someone uses a gift this way, especially when it's highly out of character, they're basically just loosening the soil of your mind so they can plant their own seeds of control.
Okay, I get the logic of the Trojan horse, but what genuinely bothers me is that we just keep falling for it. I mean, humanity has been writing about this since ancient China, so why haven't we evolved a defense mechanism yet?
It's a fair question.
If this machinery of manipulation is so well documented, why does it keep working on us?
To understand why we are so reliably susceptible, we have to look at systemic persistence. Seth Godin identifies 5 specific forces that keep these psychological and social systems locked in place.
Okay, what are they?
Well, the first is the status quo, which gets multiplied through networks.
Meaning, this is just how things are done here, and because everyone else is doing it, it normalizes the behavior.
Exactly that. Godin has a brilliant line. He says, culture is people like us do things like this.
People like us do things like this. Wow.
It's the water we swim in. Then the second force is the gravitational pull of sunk costs. We've already invested so much time or emotion or money into a relationship or a hierarchy that walking away feels like a total loss.
So we just stay and endure the manipulation. That makes sense. We hate losing our investment, even if the investment is making us miserable.
Right.
What's the third force?
The third is the practical necessity of interoperability.
Wait, interoperability, that sounds like a software term.
It is, but think of it applied to a corporate office or like a social circle.
Yeah.
If everyone else is playing the game of office politics, trading favors, managing dependencies, giving these Machiavellian gifts, you have to play it too, just to get your basic work done.
Oh, I see.
Your behavior has to interoperate with the system. If you refuse to use the same software as everyone else, you become isolated. You can't send or receive messages, so to speak.
That completely shifts how I view office dynamics. You're almost forced to participate just to survive.
That leads right into the fourth force,
Hmm.
which is the self-interest of those currently at the top of the hierarchy. The people who are winning the game have zero incentive to change the rules. In fact, they actively enforce them.
Of course they do.
And finally, the fifth force is our deeply human hunger for affiliation. We are tribal creatures. We desperately want to belong.
That fifth one feels massive. I mean, it brings us right back to the Trojan horse. We want to belong so badly that we accept the gift even if we suspect there are strings attached.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, Godin is really describing the very substrate that makes Robert Greene's Machiavellian tactics possible.
Right.
The gift works because the emotional conditioning of our childhood, that hunger for affiliation and approval, is a system. And systems persist. The people at the top sell everyone else on the idea that this hierarchy is the best vehicle for advancement, and we accept it because we so deeply want to belong to the group.
I have to push back a little here, though. I mean, isn't this just an incredibly depressing, cynical view of humanity?
I can definitely feel that way.
Like, are we just trapped in this dark machinery, constantly manipulating each other with gifts just so our software interoperates? Are we supposed to just spend our entire lives fighting these systems?
It does sound bleak, but fighting systems outright is actually a losing battle. The system is too big. The gravity of human nature is too strong.
So what do we do?
Instead, the strategy is to work with them. There's a quiet wisdom in a thought from Josh Billings. He said, life consists not in holding good cards, but in playing those you hold well.
So it's acceptance over resistance.
Acceptance of the board you're playing on, yes. I mean, you don't choose the psychological system you're born into. You don't choose the fact that human beings are vulnerable to gifts and seek approval.
Right.
But you absolutely choose how you play your hand within that reality.
Okay, so assuming you've played your cards well and you've navigated these systems to find yourself with an advantage, a lead, what is the actual end goal of winning? Do we just want control for the sake of control?
Well, that brings us to a really clean dividing line introduced by Simon Sinek. He says, authorities have control, leaders have legacies.
Authorities have control. Leaders have legacies. I like that.
Greene's Machiavellian strategist, the one who gives before taking, who loosens the soil to plant seeds of influence. That person is an authority. They are highly effective at hoarding control, managing their dependents, manipulating variables. But they leave no true legacy.
To really drive the difference home for you listening, there's a brilliant parable from Anthony DeMello about a lost shopping list.
Oh, I love this one.
Yeah, so a man loses his shopping list, searches everywhere, gets incredibly anxious about it, and finally finds it. He then goes to the store, uses the piece of paper to buy all his groceries, and when he's done, he just crumples the paper up and throws it away.
Because the list was never the point. The groceries were the point. The list was just the tool required to acquire them.
It's like spending all your time perfectly organizing your productivity app. You're color-coding the tags, setting up the perfect notification schedules, moving little digital blocks around.
We've all been there?
But you never actually do any real work. The authority is the app. The legacy is the work. Authority is just the vehicle, not the destination. When someone clings to control for its own sake, when they hoard the shopping list instead of getting the groceries, they are completely confusing the two.
And confusing the two has profound, real-world consequences, particularly for the people around you. There's an Arab proverb from our sources that illustrates this beautifully. It advises that if someone has a hot temper, you should let them take the consequences of it.
That feels a bit harsh at first glance. Like, why wouldn't you help them?
Because if you rescue them from the consequences of their own actions once, you will simply have to do it again. And again, when you rescue them, you aren't actually helping them grow. You are making them dependent on your intervention.
Which means you become their manager, essentially. You are hoarding their dependency to make yourself feel essential.
Which is exactly what an authority does. True leadership, the kind that builds a legacy, builds people who don't need rescuing. It creates independence. Authority, on the other hand, deliberately hoards a population of dependents just to manage their gratitude and maintain control. It is a fundamental difference in how you choose to spend the advantage you hold.
So if hoarding power and constantly managing a web of dependence is the wrong path, if it just turns you into a glorified babysitter for people's consequences, we need a counterweight.
Yes, we do.
We need an antidote to Greene's cold Machiavellian machinery. What stops us from just becoming cynical authorities?
The antidote, according to Ryan Holiday's insights, is empathy. But he points to a very specific mechanism for cultivating it, which is reading fiction.
Reading fiction.
Yeah, studies actually show that engaging with fiction grants us access to the interior lives of people who are completely unlike us. It forces you to inhabit another mind, which reminds you that your own experience of the world is not the only valid experience.
Holiday cites the famous opening of The Great Gatsby to make this point. Nick Carraway is recalling his father's advice, which goes, whenever you feel like criticizing someone, remember that not everyone has had the advantages you have.
Such a classic line.
But wait, here's where it gets really interesting for me, because we are looking at a massive contradiction here.
How so?
Well, Robert Greene just told us that making people feel like children triggering that deep, vulnerable desire for parental approval is a weakness to be ruthlessly exploited. But Ryan Holiday is saying that the child inside us isn't a vulnerability. It's actually the source of our capacity for wonder, our openness, and our trust.
I love that you caught that friction because it is the absolute crux of the issue. Both Green and Holiday are looking at the exact same human trait, our inner child, our emotional vulnerability.
Yeah.
But they are making diametrically opposed choices about what to do with it.
Wow, yeah.
A parent who models empathy, who reads fiction with their kids to show them the interior lives of others, is honoring that childlike trust. They are building a legacy. The Machiavellian strategist is exploiting that exact same trust for leverage.
It's the difference between protecting the inner child and weaponizing it. One builds people up, the other extracts value from them.
Which brings to mind a powerful circuit breaker for this whole dynamic, offered by Plato. He said, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle."
That's beautiful.
And this raises an important question for you to consider. If you accept Plato's premise, then emotional vulnerability isn't some rare flaw, unique to gullible people that you can just exploit for your own gain. It is the baseline human condition. We are all fighting a hard battle. We are all vulnerable.
Right.
The choice you face when you finally get the advantage is whether you weaponize that universal vulnerability or whether you meet people in the middle of it with kindness.
Which brings us to the ultimate synthesis of this deep dive. How do you practically hold these two opposing ideas in your head at the same time?
It's not easy.
On one hand, you have the cold, mechanical reality of power dynamics, interoperability, and manipulation. On the other hand, you have the warm, deeply human necessity of empathy and kindness. How do you live with both without going crazy?
Georg Christoph Lichtenberg provides a brilliant framework for this synthesis. He wrote, "One's first step in wisdom is to question everything, and one's last is to come to terms with everything."
Question everything and come to terms with everything.
Key here is recognizing that those aren't contradictory steps. They're sequential.
Okay, let's break down that first step, questioning everything. This is about achieving that uncomfortable, cold clarity we talked about earlier. You have to see the machinery.
You have to.
You have to recognize when someone is throwing a psychological Trojan horse your way, weaponizing their generosity to loosen your soil. Miguel de Cervantes perfectly captures this when he says, "The man who is prepared has his battle half fought." That's step one. Open your eyes to the cold reality of how people operate.
But you cannot stop there. Stopping at step one is what creates a cynic.
Right.
Step two is coming to terms with everything. And it's crucial to understand that coming to terms does not mean resignation. It doesn't mean rolling over and letting the system crush you.
So what does it mean?
It means deliberately choosing not to run the Machiavellian machinery yourself, even when you are fully aware of how to operate it. Cervantes has another quote that perfectly balances the first one. He says, "Great persons are able to do great kindnesses."
That is profound. Greatness and kindness aren't mutually exclusive.
Not at all. In fact, knowing exactly how the dark machinery works is the very thing that gives you the freedom to choose kindness. You aren't being kind out of naive ignorance. You aren't just a mark waiting to be exploited. You see the board clearly, and you are choosing kindness as a deliberate, powerful strategy.
So what does this all mean for you? Let's bring this all the way back to the beginning. Confucius told us that if they spit at you behind your back, you are ahead.
Right.
But being ahead isn't a destination. You don't just arrive there, pitch a tent, and set up camp. It's a direction. What you do with that lead is the entire point of the game.
You have two clear paths laid out before you. You can exploit the psychological systems of human nature. You can give gifts with hidden hooks, accumulate a following of dependent people, and hoard your authority like a man refusing to throw away his shopping list.
War.
Or you can choose the legacy path. You can go home, Read fiction with your kids to teach them empathy. Let people face the consequences of their own hot tempers so they can actually grow. And recognize that the emotional vulnerability in others is something to be honored, not leveraged.
And crucially, acknowledging our own errors allows us to correct them. Like if you've used the Machiavellian gift in the past, if you realize you've given with hidden purposes, you don't fix it by retreating and never being generous again.
No, definitely not.
You correct it by giving before you give again, but this time, completely removing the taking. Simon Sinek offers a beautiful closing thought from the sources on this. He says, if there are people who care, there is hope.
That's a great sentiment.
Being truly ahead doesn't just mean being in front of the pack, constantly looking over your shoulder to see who is spitting at you. It means being oriented forward, toward something actually worth reaching.
And I want to leave you with a final lingering thought to mull over, building on that idea of the Machiavellian gift. We talked about how giving with a hidden motive is designed to loosen the soil and plant seeds of control in other people.
Right.
But consider this. What kinds of unseen seeds are you inadvertently planting in your own psychology when you choose to practice radical, expectation-free generosity?
Oh, wow.
Could it be that giving completely without the taking is the only way to actually rewrite your internal operating system, permanently freeing you from Godin's hierarchical status quo altogether?
That is a fascinating question to sit with. If you want to change the system, maybe you have to start by refusing to run its code in your own head. Well, that is all the time we have for today's deep dive. We hope this exploration gave you some powerful tools for navigating the advantages you build in your own life.
Thank you for joining us. We wish you the very best on your continued journey of learning.
Take care, everyone. Keep looking forward.